Changing minds one thought at a time.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Changing Minds Online Mindset Series. How are you doing today, Jessica?
I am doing awesome, Akina. You know, it's a beautiful, day here, sort of. It's 55 degrees. All the snow is melted. We had a ton of rain today, so I'm super excited about that. I'm going to be running my 15th marathon this weekend in my quest for 30 by 30. Just saw the weather, and it is going to be a gorgeous day. So I am just so excited about it and really just thinking about my races and the fact that I'm on my 15th marathon and how fitting that is for our topic for this week. So without any further ado, if you want to introduce our topic for tonight.
Yes, Jessica, I would love to. You know, tonight we're going to be talking about celebrating every step to your greatness. You know, sometimes we forget while we're on the hustle, while we're on the grind, so to speak, towards our purpose, we forget to celebrate those milestones that got us where we were. We forget to look back and say, wow, we really did accomplish a lot. You know, and I know with Jessica running her 15 marathons on her way, which means she is halfway done, which is super awesome, she's going to talk about how she celebrates her celebrations to success. So tell us about the marathon, Jessica.
Thanks, Akina. You know, one of the things I wanted to really talk about is oftentimes we want to go from A to Z. So we want to change our life, right? We want to change our life immediately. So maybe we've joined a network marketing company. Maybe we've downloaded a podcast. Maybe we've downloaded an audiobook or read a book or went to an event and we were inspired by one of our mentors and we want to change our life. We say, okay, I want that. I want to create this amazing thing in my life. And we have this huge vision of what that's going to look like. And then, we go and we set ourselves up for this huge goal and we just go full force at it. And we're not going to reach it right away, right? Because it doesn't work like that. We change our lives one habit, one thought at a time. Right? When you called in tonight, you heard the music, Changing Minds Online, one thought at a time. Well, that's because changing your life is a process. And it begins with developing new habits, beginning with developing new skills, new mindset. And you do those things really one thought, one habit, one skill at a time by learning and changing. And oftentimes we expect to go from 0 to a million. I know I did initially when I first started off. And, in many ways in my business, in my business particularly, in my finances, I wanted to go from 0 to a million, right? I had a 2-figure bank account when I first decided to change my life. When I first joined a network marketing company, I had literally 2 digits in my bank account and a prayer that my credit card would continue working. And, for me, I wanted to go from that to being a millionaire, making 7 figures a year within a very short period of time. Well, that's not realistic. It doesn't work that way, right? There's steps along the way. And one of the things, and it's interesting, one of the things I do, one of my businesses is an education consulting company, and I do work with education. And I explained to a parent today who has a child who's not speaking, who's on the autism spectrum, and she said, I want my child to have a conversation. And I said, okay, but we need to go through all the stages of language development. Even though your child is younger, or older, we still go through all the stages, right? There's a natural learning progression where we're going to first do babbling, and then after that we're going to do one sentence or one, words request, and then we're going to do 2 sentence or 2-word requests, and then we're going to talk in sentences. And I said, it's not going to be initially this conversation. And then I thought about it, and I said, okay, well, in my own life, in my own business, I want things to progress very quickly, right? I wanted to go from really having nothing to speak of, to having completely everything, and seeing this concept of financial freedom that so many people and entrepreneurs are chasing after. And I had to look back, and I've heard many people say it's A to B, it's not A to Z. And I said, okay, well, where in my life can I look at the time this has worked? And, it is difficult when you're focused on creating a change to look at what's working when something is really still clearly not working, but maybe it's working a little better. So, and that was hard for me. It was hard for me to celebrate the milestone, if, for example, my finances and my business. And Akina often would come to me when we first started and say, we've hit this great milestone in changing minds online. And I would say, I don't care, I'm not a millionaire yet. Don't come talk to me about hitting, 5,000 likes. I don't really care. Or I don't, so what? We were downloaded this many times. It doesn't matter because I still don't have the level of income I want. And I was unable to celebrate the small victories, the natural victories that were going to happen along the way in that learning process and in that growth process. I wasn't ready to receive that. And the truth is, when you're not really celebrating those victories, when you're not even able to recognize them like I once was unable to do, what it means is that you're not ready yet to receive the greatness. You're not ready yet to receive that big change because you're not recognizing those milestones and those steps along the way. And for me, I said, okay, well, where in my life can I figure out a place where I have been successful in looking at the small milestones and celebrating along the way? And, if I can figure out a way that I've done it successfully, well, then I can apply that to another area of my life, and I can begin to then also celebrate and recognize the small accomplishments there and begin to celebrate them as well. And so for me, it was very clear it was running for me. So running for me was where I had a very, very small declaration, and it turned into something bigger and better than I could ever possibly imagine or realize. And I think the interesting thing about it for me was I had no hang-ups about it. So I look at like how and really just this very small decision created such an amazing result. I mean, more than I could ever possibly dream or imagine. And that's a whole other topic we've talked about, just this idea that when we take that first step that we are so extraordinarily powerful that we can create more just by one decision, and we even have the mindset, the ability to even imagine at that time. And I know that even today, I can't imagine how amazing my life is going to be next year and 2 years and 5 years and 10 years. We can't even imagine that. We just don't even have, right? We don't know what we don't know. We don't even understand how great our life is going to be. And I didn't know what my life was going to be like today when I made the decision to start running really just 2 years and 1 month ago for the very first time. And it's an interesting story. I've shared parts of it before, but we're going to talk really about celebrating those successes along the way because it relates so well to it. So when I first decided I wanted to run, I had been inspired by one of my amazing mentors, Susan Sly, to run. And I said, okay, I'm going to run a 5K. I'm going to run my very first 5K. Now, 5 kilometers might as well have been running from here to Australia, like over the Atlantic Ocean and back. I have said, oftentimes in a joke on this show, but it's the truth. The only place I had ever run in my entire life was probably from the couch to the bathroom after drinking in college. I mean, I had not run ever. I had no ability to run. I couldn't even run across the room if the room was on fire to get out of the door without getting out of breath. So when I said, okay, I'm going to run a 5K, it came from nowhere. I said, okay, I'm just going to do it. Now, the normal, typical thing to do if you want to start running would be to get on a training plan. So a lot of people, they start off with their first 5K with this either a couch to 5K plan or a similar plan. That's a phenomenal plan. I do love that plan. I've never done it personally. I'm about to share that story, but I've seen many people do it successfully. So if you're going to run your first 5K, get onto that plan. But the bottom line is you get a training plan, right? You don't just go out and decide to run 5 kilometers. You learn to run 5 kilometers. Well, I didn't do that. I just said, okay, I'm going to run 5 kilometers. And I didn't know, was it far? Was it not far? Was it hard? Was it easy? I had no idea. So I signed up for this 5K. I thought it was a 5K. It actually was a 4-mile race. I know now that that's a little bit more than a 5K. I didn't know that at the time. I don't know. It's very confusing. I still don't understand why we need our own system in the United States for measuring things, but that's a whole other topic of conversation. But I didn't know. So I thought I signed up for 5K. So I started this 4-mile race, and all I wanted to do was finish it. But honestly, I didn't really care if I didn't finish it. I just said, oh, whatever, I'm going to start this race. It was like $30, and it was in Central Park. It was fun, and I was like, all right, I'm going to run and see if I can run. And I just said, my goal is just to finish. I just want to finish this race. And it was interesting because that day, it was this massive, massive snowstorm. So it was part of my New Year's resolution to run this 5K. So on January 1st, 2014, I said I'm going to just sign up for a race. And I went on to Google running races in New York City, and the New York Roadrunners came up, and I signed up for the very first race, which was like a week later, and there was just so much snow. So they had canceled this race, and they said, if anyone wants to run, you can go run. Like, God be with you, Godspeed. Go run, but, like, you know, we're not going to penalize you if you don't go. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but apparently, you know, if you're running an organized race and you don't go to the race, they marked it down, so, you know, you get penalized for not starting a race or finishing a race that you've started. So I don't know, I'm going to go run this race with all the crazy people in the snow. So everybody else is in running clothes. Well, it was really cold out, so I was wearing boots, snow boots. I was not only, I don't go outside when it's cold. If anyone knows me, I like warm temperatures. If it goes below 50, I go inside. So I was wearing running boots, snow boots. I was wearing like a big pair of thermal socks. I was wearing leggings. I was wearing sweatpants over my leggings. I had on 2 layers of shirts. I had on a fleece jacket, and then I had my down jacket over there. I had a hat on, I had a scarf on, I had gloves on, and I had hand warmers on, and I looked absolutely ridiculous. I looked like such a fool. I mean, looking back at it, I have pictures of this first race. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. Everyone's looking at me like, what is she doing? Everyone else there were people in shorts and T-shirts, and there was I looking like I was ready to climb Mount Everest, running 4 miles, not 5K, in Central Park. And so I said, okay, I want to run this race. And so I ran it, and I did it. I crossed the finish line. I was dripping in sweat. I had shed some layers of clothes along the way, and I got to the end, and I was just so excited. And I celebrated this amazing victory, the fact that I had run this 4-mile race, and said, wow, this is something I didn't really in my heart believe when I started running the 4 miles I was going to finish it, especially because the weather was bad and I just was dressed ridiculously, not looking like anybody else there. And I said, I have to do this again. So I signed up for another one. This time I knew what to wear. I wore the right clothes, and I did really well. Much to my surprise, you know, it wasn't a matter of being able to finish. I actually was doing well. It was, you know, at the time I thought was really well, placing in the top 50%. I was doing better than some. So I did this for a while, these 4-mile races, and then I got into my head this absolutely ridiculous, crazy idea. I'm going to run on the New York City Marathon. Now, the thing about it is it was so far off into the future that it was like okay, because I didn't really think I was going to run it. I didn't even have to pay for it. I just had to pay like this $10 lottery commitment. So I said, okay, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. So this was going to be in November of 2015. So I just told everybody, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon in November of 2015, and this is now like January or February of 2014. Everyone's like, yeah, okay, So in order to do that, I had to do 9+1 in New York City. So that means running 9 races and volunteering at 1 race. So I kept signing up. I said, I'll sign up for another 4-mile race. It turns out that they don't do 5Ks. So I did another 4-mile race. And then, you know, I kind of got bored of 4-mile races because I knew I would finish. And for me, this had become this, well, I want to see how far I can finish. So I said, okay, let me run a 10K for the very first time. Let's see if I could finish a 10K. And I did that 10K, and it was interesting because it was really in this race where I became a runner. So I have some neurological issues, and it was during this race where I had the very first time while I was running, I had a flare-up of some of the nerve issues that I have, and I came close to not finishing. And I said, no, there's just no way I'm going to not finish this race. I am going to finish this race. I was so determined. And I finished that 10K. I did it. I finished that 10K. It was my worst running time to date, and I celebrated. I celebrated because it was a victory. And I said, I'm on my way to running the New York City Marathon. It was during that race that I had made the decision, come hell or high water, I was running that New York City Marathon in January of 2015, and it became serious. And that's when I told Akina, I'm really running this race. I'm not just saying this. This is not a joke anymore. This is not a game. This is not this really far off thing. I'm getting a training plan, and I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. And so, I began to really celebrate all the small victories. I started to celebrate, bringing my times down. When I went from, being excited about running a 10-minute mile to when I got excited to running a 9-minute mile, to when I got excited to running an 8-minute mile, to when I got excited about running a 7-minute mile. And then that 10K, it turned into a half marathon. And I got excited about that. And then I got onto a training plan, and I said, okay, this time I'm prepared. I'm not going not knowing what a 5K or 4 miles and is in the wrong clothes. I said, I'm gonna figure out what it is. And I started to get real. And it was because I was celebrating those steps along the way that I was declaring these things to happen. And things started to show up, right? The right nutrition system was introduced to me. The right people in my life, the right mentors were introduced to me. The people who can show me the right plan, show me what to eat, show me what to do, show me what to wear. I began to attract all of those things because I was declaring in my life something and I was creating it and I was celebrating it. I was being abundant and joyful. It was fun, right? It was easy. And so, that year, now we're still in 2014, November of 2014 comes around and I say, I don't need to wait until November of 2015 to run a marathon. I'm ready now. And all of a sudden, this 1-year race, turned into, I can do this now, this far off thing. So I said, okay, I'm running a marathon this month. And the New York City Marathon is not something you can just decide to run and run in a couple of weeks. But I found another race, the Brooklyn Marathon. It was still in New York City. I said, I'm running the Brooklyn Marathon. And 2 weeks before that race, I signed up for the Brooklyn Marathon. And that day I fell on my knees in gratitude and prayer and just cried and just kissed the ground, having run my very first marathon and celebrating along the way. So what did I do? I got home that night and I signed up for another marathon. I said, I have to do this again because this is just so much fun. And in that January, I wound up doing another marathon that January. Everybody told me, you can't do a marathon only 2 months back-to-back. That's not possible. People can't do that. Well, let me tell you, you can do whatever you decide that you're going to do. And I tell people, I said, look, it may not be true for you. Maybe you can't do that, but I can do it. So I signed up for the race. 2 months later, and 2 months later, I crossed that finish line again. And again, it just was this amazing sense of accomplishment. And I said, I really want to do this again. So I made a commitment to go, and I made a commitment to sign up for another race. But it was shortly after that I found out that I had tumors growing on the nerves in my feet. And I went to my doctor's office, and I said, something's wrong. And she said, okay, let's do an MRI. And we had the MRI. We had the results. And she says, I don't know how you're walking, never mind running. We can't even find your nerves. The tumors are too big. We can't see the nerves anymore. We don't know what condition they're in, but it's not really good, and you have to stop running. She's like, not only do you have to stop running, but my guess is, she said, within, a few months you're not going to be able to. And she says, by 30 you're going to be lucky if you don't have to lose your foot or wind up in a wheelchair. She says, but you're not going to be running. And I looked at her and I said, by 30 I'm going to run 30 marathons. And that was my response. And she just looked at me and she's like, well, do you want painkillers? Do you want to go on disability? Do you want me to give you antidepressant meds? I said, no, by 30 I'm running 30 marathons. So I'm declaring victory this. I said, I'm not interested in that. I said, that's not part of what I'm creating. And I meant it. And so every step along the way, I've been celebrating. And since then, that gave me 18 months roughly to run 28 more marathons. I've run 14 marathons total. I'm running my 15th marathon this weekend, the Central Park Marathon, which will be my third race in Central Park. One was the New York City Ultra Marathon. 3 of those marathons have been ultras. And I have just been admitted to in my network marketing company. They have a team of elite athletes and I just was recognized as an elite athlete by that company. And it's amazing to me to think about all this started because I made a decision, a New Year's resolution, to run a 5K, and I decided to go after it, and I decided to celebrate those victories along the way. And it's just, to me, a miracle that I was able to create all those things I am 15 marathons. My birthday is May 21st. I will be 30 May 21st, so I have 15 more marathons after this weekend to do between here and there. It is not poor planning. It was intentional. I'm running 10 marathons in 10 days in 8 different states in the 10 days leading up to my birthday. If I accomplish it, it may or may not set a world record. We're doing some research to figure out the logistics of that, but certainly we'll come close if it doesn't. So, and I just want to let you know that when you're celebrating those victories along the way, it is and it's possible to do anything. And really, if you want to see what it looks like at the end, and I'm telling you right now, I don't consider this running 30 marathons by 30. When I reach that goal, I'm not going to be thinking, okay, I got to my Z. I'm like C or D, because I'm telling you, there's a lot more to come. There's a lot more that I have accomplished. This is just going to be another small event, another huge, or not huge, small event, but a huge victory. But this is going to be another stepping stone on the way to the amazing things I know I'm creating, because I'm just looking forward at every victory in my life. My plan is to celebrate and to see where it's going to take me and use every victory as a stepping stone to the next victory. Kina, as you know, and I know you have a story to share as well, we are so powerful when we just look at our life as a really like a step from victory to victory. Are you there, Kina? Are you still with us? It looks like Akina might have been dropped off the call. I know she was actually driving home tonight. But on that note, I think it's really, Akina had a story to share. We're going to definitely record that at another time, and we will share that story with you. But that's really what I have to say for that tonight, guys. And I just want to leave you with that, this idea that when we look at life as really a stepping stone from victory to victory, there's nothing we can't do and there's nothing we can't accomplish. So what I want you to do today is just figure out what is your 5K, what's your first step. And then I want you to go after that first step and don't even worry about it. I didn't know I was going to be running a 10K when I declared that first 5K. I didn't know I was going to be running a half marathon when I declared that first 10K. It just was the natural progression of what happened when I completed a victory and I celebrated it. So I want you to figure out tonight, guys, what is your 5K? Declare it over your life, achieve it, and celebrate it, and watch as your life begins to change and you begin to create something so amazing, so extraordinary, more than you could ever have possibly imagined or dreamed. So on that note, I love you guys. I'm so grateful for you for calling in tonight. If you'd like to find a recording of this podcast, you can go to changingmindsonline.com. We're also on YouTube. You can find us on iTunes as well, and Stitcher. And there's, of course, Blog Talk Radio. So on that note, God bless. Make it a powerful week. And I'll be back with you. Hopefully Kina will be with us again, too, on our Empowering Women series Thursday night. And we'll see if we can get that story recorded before now and then. Have a great night, everybody, and God bless.